Awesome. Awesome. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the very first webinar for Sandlapper Dynamics. We are Sandlapper Dynamics. It's Holly and Chris here. And we are so excited to be doing this. This is our very first one, and there's going to be a lot more to follow. We've got lots of topics to cover in our future webinars, but this is a big one, and we feel like it's an important one. Holly, do you want to can we set this to record? Is it already set to record?
Let's see. Yep, recording in progress.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, so what we're going to be talking about today is whether your legacy system is holding you back, holding companies back. It probably is. 5 ways that a legacy ERP system is holding you back, and how we think Business Central resolves that, how Business Central fixes it. That would be Microsoft Dynamics 365 Business Central, but we'll call it Business Central for short, or BC. So first, let's just talk about who we are, so we can jump to the next slide. Holly, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Yep. So my name is Holly Huffman, and I have been in the ERP space for 15 years, working specifically with Dynamics GP. And then after my time with Compact Power and Home Depot's acquisition, I went on to lead a team of 2 project managers, product managers, UX designers, and 52 software engineers at Home Depot. Um, Clearly Chris typed this because it says I am a world-class baker. I don't know about that, but um, I do love dogs and plants. So Chris, you got that one right.
I did type that up, and I haven't eaten her food. I can tell you that she's a world class baker. She showed me a cheesecake that she baked just today that I'm not going to be able to eat, but whatever. Yeah, and I'm Chris Bowling. I have been in the ERP ecosystem for 20 years. I started my career implementing Dynamics GP right out of school 100 years ago. I started traveling around helping companies move off their legacy ERP systems at the time onto Dynamics GP. And I, along with Holly, led the effort to scale a very small regional organization to a national level, at the very least mid-size organization, to an eventual acquisition by a Fortune 20 company. That was the Home Depot that Holly mentioned. I don't know that I'm world class at anything except maybe being a Disney enthusiast. I do have a Disney podcast out there if anybody's interested in that sort of thing. We've got a couple of quotes down there. We're going to make this deck available to anybody that wants it. And so, along with those quotes on the next slide, we've got some more information about who we are, who Sandlapper Dynamics is. We've got our mission, our vision, and our values there, so that we're not going to drain this slide, but if you take this deck away, you'll have some information about who we are. In short, our mission is to uplift others so people can lead with clarity, teams can work with confidence, and businesses can grow with purpose, all through the power of Microsoft technologies. Um, it's for us, it's all about people, and leading with empathy. And so this is who we are. We hope you'll take this deck. You'll learn a little bit more about us here on these slides. Okay, so let's get into how we think legacy systems are holding companies back and how Business Central can resolve those issues. First, we want to talk about how we define a legacy system. And when I think about a legacy system, I think about the image you see on this screen. This position that this fellow is in, by the way, is what I refer to as a surrender cobra. He's making like a cobra position with his hands. And this is what, like on Saturdays at football games, the losing team's fans, they make this position because they've given up, they've lost. This is a surrender cobra position. And that's what it feels like with a legacy system when you're just fighting a losing battle. Um, his server room there used to be half that size, but as they've scaled up, they've tried to keep up with a growing company. His server room just keeps growing and keeps growing. Okay, and so the way we think about a legacy system is stacks of virtual servers, but still sketchy remote connectivity for all those disparate remote workers that we're seeing more and more and more in today's age, right? We see a lot of workarounds for work that when you first implemented this solution, you thought, okay, well, this is a workaround for now, but one day we'll get around to this and we're going to automate it. But you never did, and you eventually just accepted it as this is just how we work, right? These workarounds are part of our regular workflow. Um, we're talking about siloed systems in legacy systems. So you got one for billing, one for operations, one for accounting, maybe a separate one for bank rec, and you sort of just piece them all together and make it work, right?
With prayers, yes.
With right. And then this is also, if maybe you weren't there when the system went into place, right? You joined the company after the system was already put in place, and uh, someone, as you were getting trained up, you might have said, well, why do we do it this way? Why do we do it this way? And it was described as, this is just how we've always done it, right? That this is a legacy system. Okay. So that's what we think about when we think about a legacy system. So in short, the 5 ways that we think a legacy system is holding you back is one, through limited accessibility. We've built sort of workarounds through virtual servers and whatnot to try to make it accessible outside of the office. But once you've seen what BC offers, you realize not really. High maintenance costs. Again, I think about the guy with the surrender code propose. We'll get into that. Lack of integration, those siloed systems. Not only that, Microsoft's systems that, I mean, gosh, I read an article not long ago about how much of even a company like Amazon is running their day-to-day operations on Excel. And are their systems integrating in Excel? Outdated user experiences. We'll talk about the evolution of the user experience. We've all seen how much R&D has gone into just the user experience of scrolling our phones and what that does. How we've been trained to use modern screens, right? And then the limited scalability. Right? Holly and I worked for a company that we had to scale. It went from 8 million to 150 million, but it was hard, man. It was hard. And scalability today is easier. Okay, so let's talk about how Business Central fixes it. Number one, cloud-based access and security. With BC, you can legitimately work from anywhere on any device. And it's built on Azure, Microsoft Azure, for world-class enterprise level security and compliance with legitimate automatic updates. Okay, we're going to talk about the automatic updates more when we talk about the low cost of ownership in the next set of slides, number 2. But let's talk about the legitimate access from anywhere on any device. Business Central is a true web accessible, internet accessible solution, software as a service, legitimately. I think we can go to the next slide, I think, and take a quick look at how this is a quick snapshot of how, so we're going to see the mouse sort of run around. This is the view that you would see in Business Central. This is a web page. These are web pages that we're bouncing around here on. It's all links. We're bouncing from one web page to the next web page, all within the ERP system, right? You can go to a coffee shop in Italy, or your home in London, or a McDonald's in Lincoln, Nebraska, where I'm located today, and access the exact same ERP system through Google Chrome, right? And it's going to utilize 2-level security, your Active Directory or Entra ID through Azure. But then it's when you actually go to this website, you will have bookmarked the website for Business Central. You go to that bookmarked site and it's going to ask you, oh, you're logging in as you? Okay, use your Microsoft Authenticator app on your phone to hit that second level of security to make sure that you are who you say you are, and before we let you in here, right?
And that's another
No,
great point, Chris, is
yeah,
just the amount of people that are already using Outlook and Excel. They don't have to remember another password, right? It's the same
right.
password you're going to use to get into everything. And
Yes.
especially with teams being so distributed now, remote work, like the ability to access it on Safari, right? The other day I took a prospect out to lunch and I entered my expense from my iPhone so that I didn't forget to because I could. On our old legacy system, I would have had to have waited until I got back to a desktop, right?
Right.
It's
That's true.
great.
Yes. Right
Yeah,
from your phone, you were able to do it, as opposed to wait till I get even to home so that I'm attached to a VPN and get to my remote desktop and then log into GP, right? Right. You're literally logging into your VPN, then logging into remote desktop, then logging into GP.
yeah,
Whereas here you logged into this app on your phone,
yep,
right? But comfortable in the fact that you're secure because of Microsoft's enterprise level security, right?
exactly.
It's a truly cloud-based, secure, remote access, which in today's world is everything, right? Okay, cloud-based access, way huge quantum leap forward over our workaround access that we used previously. So our next thing that the way BC fixes our legacy issues, we go to the next slide. Total cost of ownership drops dramatically. This might be my favorite one, because these were the areas where Holly and I had to go to leadership and try to sell huge, expensive things, whether it was huge expenses for hardware and infrastructure, or it was huge, expensive upgrades, right? These things go away entirely with a solution like a software as a service solution like Business Central. So no hardware to maintain. Okay. So again, I think about our guy in Surrender Code Repose in front of his server room. Back at Compact Power, where Holly and I worked for the customer as a customer before we started Sandlapper Dynamics. Um, we went from tiny server room, which literally had to scale as our company scaled. We literally had to do construction to grow the size of that server room to hold the servers, which themselves were growing in number and size. And as the servers, which that cost money, the servers grew in size, that created a much hotter room, which meant we had to put in AC units that we didn't plan for. And then those AC units eventually couldn't keep the room cool enough. And I will never forget having to go to our CFO and convincing him that we had to augment the mobile AC units with a split system to maintain the temperature in the server room. And none of that had anything to do with the actual ERP system that was handling our financials, right? But it was all cost to keep our financials up and running. Then you
And I think
had
the
the
other,
yeah, go
sorry,
ahead.
not to cut you off, but I think the other piece to that too is like how heinous it is that we pay all this money, right, to be able to scale and all these things. And it's almost like we're paying to keep those limitations, right? Because these older systems, they do limit us. They tie our hands behind our back from being able to do, integrations that are more successful for the business or the workflows. And so we're paying to be limited, right? And that's so counterintuitive.
It,
So
it's true. It is counterintuitive. And then there were times when we put off upgrades because it was, God, it's just such a nightmare for the users. We got to shut the systems down. The IT team's going to work overnight through the weekend, and then hopefully we get them up and running again by Monday morning without losing anything, without having to restore any backups. Um, we had to repurchase new software, and that's going to cost a lot of money. Um, so let's just skip it for this year and hope that next year we don't have to do a double upgrade, right? To jump two systems.
Which
And
I don't know
then
that we ever got away from.
I don't think I agreed. I don't think we ever did
Yeah.
successfully do that. But then now you get to the budgeting period time period, and I remember going again to the CFO and saying, "Look, we didn't do an upgrade this year, so let's stick another $50,000 to $100,000 in the budget for next year, maybe, and hopefully we'll come in under that." That goes away with BC because we the upgrades are automatic. Twice a year, BC does what they call waves. They do a wave upgrade in April, a wave in October. These are their major upgrades each year, and they do minor updates in between each of their major waves. They're scheduled, they happen automatically, and the infrastructure related to that happens in a data center that's secure in the cloud. You don't have to worry about it. All that goes away. Your only cost you have to worry about is your subscription pricing. That's it.
And
So it's
Chris, the other thing you
predictable.
just said that made me think of this is just the wave releases that happen and even the minor waves. They're to release new features. And I think that that's a missed piece too, right? Is that we spend a lot of money customizing systems that didn't have those features back in the day, which just adds to the total cost of ownership because we're, massaging a system, trying to get it to do what we want it to do when newer ERPs are available that have these features built in organically. So it doesn't even cost extra, right? It's just table stakes.
Absolutely. Absolutely true. Yes, 100%. So just it's not just lowering your cost of ownership, it's also the predictability in cost that you gain. Being able to know what your technology is going to cost you through the next year is a huge improvement. Okay. All right. So I love that one. I could speak on that one forever because I mean, gosh, it's the nerves. I can still feel the nerves of having to go sell those expenses to leadership. Okay, big deal here. Seamless integration with Microsoft 365 and Power Platform. This is such a huge leap forward. So let's take a look at the image on the next screen because it's gonna show all of these tools that we integrate with Business Central. Legitimate native integration with Excel, Outlook, and Teams. Now, look, I'm the first one to admit we've been saying this about various ERP systems for years. We can integrate with Excel, especially Excel, right? We can integrate with Excel. But I also know that a lot of times, most of the time, that might mean I can export a tab delimited CSV and which Excel can open. Or I can download this, or I can create a PDF and I can upload that into my ERP system and attach that to a record in my ERP. Right? That's ultimately what we ended up doing to connect our data from our legacy ERP systems to something like Excel. This is Microsoft technology. This is Microsoft Dynamics 365 Business Central, integrating with Microsoft 365. This is the same family of product. You may have a salesperson that you don't need to actually go into Business Central, but he or she might want to keep up with their sales orders. They can literally open up Teams and track the progress of their sales orders within Teams. It is that seamlessly integrated. It is native integration. I can email directly from BC. It's not I can create a file that email can then read. No, I can hit the send button from within BC. I can literally there's a drop down in BC that says edit in Excel. I can pull records in Excel and not just read them. It's very, dangerous. I don't know that I'd let everybody do it, but you can literally edit records directly in Excel, hit a publish button, and it edits the live records directly in Business Central. This is legitimate integration. Okay. Power BI dashboards, Microsoft Power BI, legitimately uh, live integration. And this last little bullet here, automating workflows with Power Automate, it's a That bullet should be like bold and 24 font and diagonal across the page, because what it means for how we can take siloed systems and pull them together into one unified system is a quantum leap forward. Historically, that required custom developers to build systems to bring those together. That goes away with a tool like Power Automate. Power Automate is specifically designed to allow non-developers, through what we call low no code solution, to integrate siloed systems, right, through automation. Where we may have had to manually do it before, we can create automation to link a medical billing tool to your back-end BC accounting tool so that things happen automatically. It's it's wonderful. It sounds like magic to an old guy like me, but it's truly amazing.
Yeah, I think one of the best ways I've heard it said is that like before it was a bunch of patchwork and now it's just part of the fabric, right? It's so natively integrated that you don't even know that it's integrated. It's just part of the stack. Like it's just the way things are, right?
Yeah,
So yeah, it's a
it
huge,
is.
huge,
And it's hard to, if you come from a legacy system, it's hard to imagine that it is all part of the stack. But I've been telling people like they've got their Microsoft Office 365, Microsoft 365, and then they've got their business solution, Microsoft Dynamics 365, and they talk. It's just
yeah.
that simple.
And a lot of companies too, I think, use non-Microsoft products, right? And Microsoft's been really good about not just building connectors in Power Automate that are Microsoft. They are building connectors to ServiceNow or Confluence or Jira or non-Microsoft products because they realize that there's companies out there, right, that have these other systems. And so just having a plug and play connector that's pre-built for you, you just point to it and say, here, it's a huge win. No developer needed. Developers are highly expensive resources. So just again, adds to the total cost of ownership as well.
Yes. Eliminate steps, and eliminate error.
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Let's talk about the user experience. Okay. Modern, fast onboard, and which allows for faster onboarding of new team members, right? It's intuitive, role-based workspaces, reduced training, and it's web-based, so it's familiar for most users, especially those new users that are entering the workforce today and what they're used to, right? Huge amounts of money have been spent on understanding human psychology and how we react to screens and web pages and whatnot, right? And so Business Central is no different, right? One of my very first job in this space was helping a landscape company move off of an industry specific solution, I think, called Slice. It was literally a green screen DOS based solution, and they were moving to GP, which was a graphical interface. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is mind blowing. You guys are gonna love it. You're pressing buttons right on a screen, right? This is almost as big a leap forward because this is links, tiles, drop downs. Let's take a look at the next page. On the next page, we've actually got a picture of the role center. This is where you would log in, and depending on who you logged in as and your role, whether you're a salesperson or a business manager or an accountant or a payables clerk, this page, this home page, would may look different depending on who you are. And you can see here, these are links, these are drop downs, these are tiles for shortcuts. There's a little spyglass in the top right that is global search, that is like a game changer. You literally just go up there, and if you go through Business Central training, they'll tell you just go up there and type in what you want, right? When you're on a sales order page and you want to type in a customer record, if you know the customer number, great, type that. If you know the customer name, great, just type that. Type part of the customer name. It's going to find what you want. It's just so much more intuitive. As a GP user coming to BC, I kept wanting to go press the save button every time. No need for that. It's it's smarter than that. It is automatically saving everything you do all the time, right? It's just a much slicker, easier user interface that new workforce is going to pick up like this. The training turnaround is going to be so much faster and so much easier.
I think too, Chris,
Okay.
for this one of the things, I think it's a very common sense thing that when the system's UX and design is hard to use, you lose efficiency, right? But I think that there's like this unspoken one of like when your users stop trusting the system, and there's so much gold mine data that can happen if your users are using the system. So not only are they not as efficient when the UX is difficult to navigate, but I think they also lose trust in the system, and
Oh,
that can spread, and there's a whole cost associated to that too. I don't know if it's trackable, right? But when people feel like they're fighting with it every day and they're not using it as intended, there's costs that you're bleeding there too.
100%. Yes, yes, yes. And I might just also point out that there's two links here that we can see on this particular role center to Excel reports and Power BI reports, touching back on that integration with Microsoft products there.
Yeah,
So,
and just the personalization, right? Like I'm
oh
not going to
yeah.
do it, but if I were to click on that gearbox at the top right, I can say, okay, yeah, Chris and I are both, clerical accountants, but I work in this way and I want to see my work in this way. That's fine. I can easily, as a non-dev, come and drag and drop all the things you see on the screen right now, unique to how I want to see it without affecting Chris. So not only is the UX better, but even allowing the user to massage how they want it to look and feel without impacting everybody else in that same role is
Yeah.
big.
And
Yeah.
that's the case for every window in the system. I can personalize it to how I want to see any window.
Yep.
Yeah. It's a huge leap forward. Okay. And the last major leap forward for Business Central over legacy systems is its pure scalability. We talked about how when Holly and I worked on the other side of the desk as a customer, we did manage to scale our systems, but it was a slog. It was construction on our server room, adding infrastructure, and adding software, buying new licenses, and with every purchase we had to wait on registration keys to be sent to us, put those registration keys in, hope that the registration keys were right, hope that if they were, we keyed them right, that they opened up the right modules. Hopefully they added the right number of users if that's what we were trying to upgrade, right? That all that goes away. When you purchase Business Central, it's just your subscription licensing. You pay your monthly price per person and you get everything. You get your general ledger accounting, your accounts receivable, your accounts payable, your warehousing, your distribution, if you're a field service company, you get that. If you deal with project accounting, you get that. Right? You get all of those tools. Now you're free to implement what you want, when you want, how you want, do a phased rollout. And if you need to grow your user base, it's as simple as calling up your partner and saying, "Hey, we need to add 3 users." Okay, well, we'll just add those to your licensing and add the users to the system. That's it. And your subscription fee goes up by 3 users a month. That's it. That's how you scale up. In terms of like all the infrastructure, the hardware, and all that stuff's handled by Microsoft in the cloud. They do all that, right? Multi-company, multi-currency support, all that's already built in. Our multi-company and multi-currency that required registration keys in our previous legacy system, like in GP, right? It's so much easier to scale in a software like Business Central than it
Yep.
used to be.
And even scaling, like in terms of the increase in users, easy, fast. Increase in website traffic. If you're on Azure, you spin up a new virtual machine in minutes. Whereas before, like Chris said, you have to order the servers, wait for them to get there, network them, firewall them. It's all virtualized, right?
That's true.
And so you can within 4 hours do what would have taken you 2 weeks if you were, scaling up in that same way. So
True.
yeah, it's
Yep.
massively beneficial.
Absolutely. So we're
And
right at 30 minutes.
one other really quick one I'll say too
Yeah,
is
go ahead.
if you're also just not scaling just website or just users, but let's say that you're scaling in terms of we're starting this new line of business. There are 7,000 right ISVs in the market, which are basically just little bolt-ons that are modular to BC. 7,000 of them, and anything that's as specific as a cleaning company, right, or just bank reconciliation automation, whatever you could need to do, right? It's very portable, all of those ISVs in the community that add just additional features and functionality that's very
Yeah,
quick and easy if you're scaling that way too, right? Just talking about doing new processes or something. So,
yeah, totally, absolutely right. Yeah. So where does Sandlapper Dynamics fit in? We're going to take a few minutes here to talk about how where we fit. If you're not ready to like make any decision, you're just here to gather information, right? We're happy to partner with you before you even start considering making a switch from your legacy system to set up an engagement with you where we sit down and we think about what you do today, right? Maybe you say, we're very big into project management. Could you come in, help us take a look at our project management workflows in relation to our systems? We can do two things. We can help determine where you've got bottlenecks and how you might overcome those bottlenecks within the confines of your current system, right? Maybe there are things that within your current system and workflows that we can help with. But we can also say, okay, if you did move to Business Central, here's what the benefits would be, right? From that engagement, you'll have an actionable takeaway whether you chose to move on to the next steps or not, right? And there's value in that. On the other hand, if you decided you did want to move forward and start the process of moving to a new system like Business Central, we're not going to drain this slide, but we thought that since we we're going to make this deck available, this is high level what an engagement with Sandlapper Dynamics would look like, right? This is from discovery through deployment would look like. And you'll notice that we're there to support the entire way and then post deployment, right? This is how we would walk you and your team through the decision to move off of your old system onto Business Central, right? And we're there every step of the way. Okay.
yep. There's other Dynamics partners in the ecosystem. So just a little bit in deeper is like Chris and I have a very people-centric philosophy in that it's people and processes and then your platform. So some
Yes.
other partners that we've worked with in the past when we were customers seemed very, here's how the platform works. I am going to fit that to you guys versus how do y'all work? And then let me make sure that the platform that I suggest or tailor or customize fits around you, not that we're making you fit around the technology. And so
That's
I
right.
think that's one of the things that, Chris and I, when we started Sandlapper, really wanted to bring to the table was just that, you know, it's people first, it's processes next, and then it's the technology. It's not the other way around, which I think a lot of folks can get that off. And when it's off, because we felt it ourselves when we had partners, it's it's not a great experience. So
Yeah. Yeah, and 100%. Now, what we don't want to, we there's a lot of times one reason people want to move off of a legacy system is because there are bottlenecks. It's creating pain. And we don't want to move to a new system and keep that same pain, right? So we want to make sure that we're solving problems regardless of the software we're going to,
yes,
right?
yep,
So that's really the goal for us is to solve those pains. If Business Central is the solution for that, wonderful. But we're going to approach it as here's your pain points. Let's make sure that when we're done with this project, that those pain points have been resolved.
yep.
Awesome. Okay. And for sitting through our presentation, which we very much appreciate, we do have an offer. We will take that pre-decision engagement that we talked about, and we're willing to offer up a 2-hour process and software assessment. So a high-level deliverable detailing a Microsoft Dynamics solution mix that we think could be a best fit for your business. So again, Since it's just a 2 hour assessment, I would say okay, here's our project management process. Let's get together and specifically workflow your project management process and see what we can come up with to improve that, whether it's through a new software or a process that you already have that we think we can improve even within your current framework, right? Can't go too far in 2 hours, but we can do something. We can come up with some way to improve what you're doing today in a couple of hours, I believe. So there's our contact info. You've got a QR code there. And with that, we want to give you the opportunity to ask any questions.
And just for those who aren't as used to the go-to setting, there is a little question box at the top right. If you do have questions, we're not unmuting everybody, but if you want to pop them in the chat, we'll be happy to answer them.
Oh, there's the questions box.
Yep.
And probably stop the record there, so we can answer the questions here, and then that way it's easier